Hello and a very warm welcome to the late-breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking. Today reviewing the Italian Grand Prix, won by Max Verstappen, therefore breaking the record for most consecutive victories in a row, 10 now to be precise. He was followed home by his teammate Sergio Perez in second place, but not before a pretty epic duel between him and the two Ferrari guys that finished third and fourth, Carlos Sainz finishing third for his first podium of the season after claiming pole position yesterday. Sam, that was low-key spicy.
Low-key spicy? More like a vindaloo, mate. That wasn't just the korma, is it? You've all got a bit of a hot dish there. Monza, went through this phase over the last few years of having what's called or as Crofty likes to go on about it, the Monza curse. And everyone thought...
I'm so glad that's done.
Right, that's written off. We don't have to worry about that ever again now. We'll all forget about it. Thank God for that. But Monza, it shows that Monza delivers pretty sporadic results, races that go a little bit astray. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen out front. And weirdly enough, on that Saturday when Carlos Sainz took pole position, the stat came out that it is actually more important to get pole position at Monza than it is at Monaco, because you more likely win from pole than you don't, which is, a pretty massive stat considering the amount of DRS and slipstream and heavy braking zones, which in theory lead to great overtakes. Now, I commented on this while we were watching the race together, Harry, that I think they nailed the length of the DRS zone around here at Monza. It meant that cars got close enough that going into that braking zone, you had to have your big old cojones ready to go around the outside of that turn 1, turn 2, or you're going off, as we saw many cars cutting that first corner, or you're locking up, or you're running into the side of someone, and we saw it many, many times this race weekend. And low-key spicy is, I think, an under-exaggeration of just how good that battle was. Carlos Sainz was defending within an absolute inch of his life. Sergio Perez was whinging over the microphone to desperately get past him in any way possible. And then Charles Leclerc nearly absolutely destroyed all of Ferrari's hopes and dreams by desperately trying to wipe out the both of them. But I loved every second. I screamed most of the way through that Grand Prix. And if you want a little highlight reel of how that sounded, it will be up on our social media in the next, hopefully, 24 hours or so.
Soon. Depends when Kirsty gets back from the pub.
Whenever K-Dog gets back from the pub, you'll see it. But honestly, it was a great battle. Max Verstappen not starting first really meant that the first part of the race was spicy and interesting and fun. The tyre issue was very, very interesting as well. You don't know who was going where. Absolutely loved seeing Sainz get... I'm not going to say that, actually.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I stopped. It was great. Really fun. What did you think?
Christ. That was an intro.
Well, I just loved it.
Very passionate about this race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we screamed a lot. It was, you're right, and maybe it was pure luck, but the length of the DRS or what, the tyres or whatever meant that it was difficult to overtake, but not impossible. And that is the perfect mix.
The recipe for a lovely race.
Good race. When you leave it to space.
Some people did not leave it to space.
Well, get on to that.
Yeah.
Not many, actually.
There's no space in Monza.
There'll be a lot of lack of space discussion coming up. I'm very sure about that. Also coming up, moment of the race submissions a little bit later on. Our thoughts on Williams' race, Alex Albon in the points, Logan Sargent not able to follow that. Mercedes finishing 5th and 6th, but both picking up penalties. And of course, Ferrari finishing 3rd and 4th and getting a podium at their home Grand Prix. Let's start out front. Max Verstappen did have a bit of work to do, as you've alluded to, Sam. Didn't get pole position yesterday, but did eventually make his way past Carlos Sainz to claim a relatively comfortable victory. And he was followed home by Sergio Perez in second place. Now, of course, there was a little bit of optimism, just a little bit of optimism that Ferrari might be able to throw up something interesting in this Grand Prix. Sam, was there any way Ferrari could have done something about that result, or was it inevitable?
I think they did throw up something interesting, and I think when it came down to it, it was actually the Carlos Sainz mistake that allowed Max Verstappen through. And I think if Carlos Sainz, who did a brilliant job kind of the first 15 or 16 laps, even when the tyres started to go off, holding back Max Verstappen, who was permanently within that DRS zone and got incredibly close on a multiple times through turn 1 and 2, but it was the lock-up that allowed him to go too deep into turn 1 that meant that the switchback and the momentum out of that corner was far too easy for Verstappen with that exit, that actually in the end allowed him to get the move done. And I do think that the unforced error from Sainz made it possible, because we saw with the incredibly skinny rear wings that every car has to have around Monza, and with the limited DRS running that we have around here, it means that actually overtaking under DRS is a much smaller advantage. You don't get such a simple run around a car during a straight line here, which was fantastic because it meant that moves had to be done with a lot of risk going into that turn one. And I don't think Verstappen ever wanted to throw complete caution to the wind. Harry, you said it while we were watching, that 4 or 5 years ago, Max Verstappen would have just sent that right down the inside from about half a second away and gone, I'm either making it or we're crashing. You know, and now you saw how reserved he was, and he waited, he bided his time, he really took time to put the pressure on Carlos Sainz, and it was only because of the mistake, I think, that it made it so easy. The Red Bull was faster, but I really think that Ferrari played their hand well in the first portion of the race, and were doing a fantastic job at holding back Red Bull, and because Red Bull was stuck behind, I don't think there was any way through. I genuinely do think that because of the way that the DRS is set up and the way the cars are set up around Monza, he wasn't going through at all. I genuinely think he was stuck behind there until a mistake was made, and that is the reason why Verstappen got past. Once he got past, plain sailing, easy days. But I think the overtake was so much harder than anyone expected it to be.
What did you make of Verstappen's victory, Harry? Did you expect it to be, I guess, as difficult as it was, in that it did take him a number of laps to get past Carlos Sainz?
Yeah, very measured from Verstappen, which I think we're getting used to this year. I guess I wasn't too surprised, given what we said yesterday after qualifying, that we suspected they had a bit more wing on the car. You know, after lap 3 or 4, whatever it was, and he was in DRS range, we were thinking, oh God, it's all over already. But yeah, I did expect Sainz to be able to hold off Verstappen, which he did very well, barring that lockup that eventually led to the overtake. I think Sainz did very well to keep him behind, defended all the right pieces of the racetrack. But yeah, as Sam's already mentioned, and we said it earlier, 4, maybe even 3 years ago, Verstappen would have. There was a couple of times where there was a little sniff of an inside that he could have gone for, but he didn't into turn 1. But I think he would have just sent it back in the day. And I'm not saying that's what he should have done today. What he did was right. But he even said on the radio, didn't he, that they're struggling with their tyres, and GP saying, just bide your time sort of thing, which he did. And just was lining Sainz up for a mistake for lap after lap, and eventually Sainz cracked. So, yeah, it's quite...
I mean, we saw how calm Verstappen was when they had that radio message. He went, he's already sliding, it's no problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like, he's just sort of under control, and we said it after caller yesterday. It seemed like they weren't bothered about being P2. In fact, P2 was probably better than they'd hope. I think maybe they were perhaps fearing they'd be where Perez was, in which case that afternoon might have been slightly more difficult for Verstappen, but obviously he wasn't. So, God, it's pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that team, the package, the way they're delivering it, it was all managed so well. And I think that the only thing that let Ferrari down, bar the individual mistake from Sainz, which he put up such a valiant fight, was I think they were too slow on their uptake of the pit stops. I think that they maybe could have stayed within the fight with Verstappen and got back in front had they undercut immediately after Verstappen got in front of him.
You saw how long it took Perez to get past it because he didn't jump him in the pit stops.
Yeah, and I think if they got back in front of him due to an undercut, I mean, the undercut wasn't too powerful. We saw that multiple times, but the fresh tyre ability, which we saw for the likes of Lewis Hamilton when we went onto the medium tyres, really demonstrated just how much you could do if you get the run. Because if Verstappen doesn't come in immediately, which he likely would have done, but if he doesn't, I do think that the Ferrari guys could have maybe got themselves back in front, and that's how you control the race. That's how you end up winning it. So maybe that's where they let themselves down. They could have done a little more.
I think Verstappen was getting by Sainz at some point. It happened on that lap. I think if it didn't happen on that lap, it would have been in a few laps' time. I think Sainz certainly was pressured into making an error, but I don't think those tyres were getting any better. Even if the lockup doesn't happen there, I think it happens in two laps' time, 5 laps' time. I think this was always a case of when rather than if for Max Verstappen. Respect to Ferrari for being able to keep Verstappen behind for as long as he did, and certainly the car was set up in a way that Ferrari getting on pole was going to make it difficult for Verstappen, because even when Verstappen was 5 temps, even 4 temps coming out of Parabolica, that still wasn't enough for him. And I think the point on DRS being absolutely right here is a good one, in that I think that completely made this race. If DRS was any more powerful than what it was, that would have been over in 15 laps, like everything settled in 15 laps. And I think we would be talking about a very different race today. I think Verstappen and Perez would have just sailed off into the distance and we wouldn't actually have too much to discuss here. As it happened, the fact that Verstappen could get so close to Sainz out of the Parabolica or the Curve Alboreto and just couldn't get that move done, even with that advantage, said a lot about how, I guess, weak DRS was here. I think your point on Verstappen being quite measured is correct. There was one instance where he tried to go around the outside of Carlos Sainz, and Sainz was having absolutely none of it. I think in that situation, I think it was a slight hiccup in that I don't see why Verstappen stuck it in there for as long as he did. I think he was ambitious trying to go around the outside there because he wasn't side by side with Sainz going into the corner. I think he just tried something a little bit cheeky mid-corner.
Major flashbacks.
Yeah, he got to mid-corner and was like, oh, God.
Not again.
Oh, not again.
No.
I think he should just back down that like straight away. I think it was coming at that point, and I don't think there was a lot of value in him sticking it in there. But also, yeah, as soon as he got that move done, it was plain sailing from there. So fair play to him. I mean, we're talking about a win at Monza for a rival team like it's nothing. But yeah, Verstappen at least on track had to work today to get past a car.
We had a battle for the lead, that's what I said earlier.
We had a 15-lap long battle for the lead,
Yeah.
and that's the first time for a while, considering that he's won 10 in a row, and, you know, fair play to both Red Bull and Max Verstappen. It is an incredible achievement, as much as it maybe doesn't make for the spiciest of seasons. That was fun, and Ferrari brought a lot of entertainment to this Grand Prix, and a lot of the reasons why it was such a fun race to watch was because of Ferrari.
God.
Yeah.
Which is a mad one.
I think, like, I'm not the type of person when watching Formula One to say that a race can't be good if there isn't a battle for the lead. I think races can be good even when there isn't a battle for the lead. But it's very difficult for a race to be better than, say, 8 out of 10 if there isn't a battle out front. There are instances where we've had really good races where that hasn't been the case. The one that immediately springs to mind is the Chinese Grand Prix from 2012. Great race. Nico Rosberg won it by a mile. I can't remember the exact gap, but he sailed off into the distance. But there was such an epic battle for literally every position further back than that it was still a classic. But it can be very difficult for a race to be a classic. I think that's a bit of an exception without having that battle out front. So it was, I guess, relative in a sense, and it was refreshing just to have that in place, even if it was temporary and not a full race distance long.
Yeah, I think if Zandvoort hadn't happened, that might have been race of the season.
I think I preferred it to Zandvoort.
It's a lot less manufactured chaos than Zandvoort, right? It's pure on-track racing action, whereas Zandvoort was kind of uncontrollable acts of God kind of chaos.
Yeah, they are two very different races. That's a good point.
But I love both of them. We've had a great fortnight of Formula One.
Yeah.
So Liam Lawson needs to stay.
Liam Lawson is the actual reason it's chaos.
What a great point. Yeah. Liam Lawson.
Sorry, Daniel, mate.
Stay around some. We obviously had Max Verstappen in first place, but Sergio Perez did join him in second place, had to work his way through the field a little bit as he started on the third row in qualifying. Harry, what did you make of Sergio Perez's comeback through the field? Do you think he played it well? Should he have got there sooner? What are your thoughts?
I would also fairly measured, not as measured as his teammate. There were a few instances where he also was trying, as you say, that one time Verstappen tried to chuck it around the outside of Sainz. Perez tried that multiple times. At one point, for like a few laps, he just didn't bother doing turn 2. Like he was
that's true.
I'm not doing that one.
Overrated.
Overrated corner. So yeah, and like I said, he obviously had more work to do from qualifying. Qualifying slightly further down in P5.
P5 is correct.
Sorry, P1. Yeah, in P5. So he was going to have a scrappier race in that sense, just because he had more cars to overtake. But pretty good. I think it was a tough afternoon for Red Bull, more tough than they've had for a long time. Not saying they still were not the quickest on the day, but actually getting to the point where they were at the front was difficult. But I think again he was relatively measured. There are a few argy-bargy moments, but nothing, no harm, no foul, and all that.
We had a good time.
And yeah, as soon as the tire deg and difference came in, he was getting his way past the cars, sort of picked them off one by one. So yeah, I think pretty good from Perez. Did the job of what Red Bull need him to do, and that's be P2. So yeah.
What do you think, Sam? We've discussed a lot of Sergio Perez's comebacks through the field this year, but in most instances they've been from further back than what we're talking here. Having said that, from P5 to P2, were you satisfied with how he played it?
Weirdly, I think other comebacks were easier, despite having to come from further back. And a lot of that is down to where the Red Bull gains its advantage, and that is through the use of the rear wing and DRS. So when overtakes need to be made and the DRS can be activated at a track that is hugely downforce dependent, let's say the start-finish straight at Hungary, for example, is so downforce heavy that when you do open the rear wing, you see such a massive impact from that DRS that getting the straight line speed up to place and then getting alongside into turn one is actually quite simple when you have such an advantage. So I think coming back through Hungary, weirdly, might have been easier than overtaking somewhere like Monza. Now, because of that, Sergio Perez had a tough time, and the competitors around him were on it today. They were feisty, they were hungry for those positions. Obviously, Ferrari wanted to be first, so they were desperate to cling on to any podium they could. Yes, it wasn't the cleanest of races from Sergio Perez. He had a couple of expeditions off at turn 1 and turn 2. But you know what? It was all entertainment. He got the job done, and as Harry said, he did exactly what Red Bull needed of him. He finished in P2. He brought home the maximum amount of points other than the fastest lap, which of course Piastri got. And I don't really understand what more you could critique him on. I think he qualified exactly where Red Bull probably thought they were actually going to qualify as well. Kind of the P4. I think in their ideal world, they maybe would have had Verstappen P3, Perez P4, and they'd have gone, that's grand. We're good here.
Yeah, Russell probably got in their way a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't think
qualifying P4.
Yeah. I think that was more the surprise than Ferrari, because we know that Ferrari enjoy a bit of a straight rather than a bendy bit. But Perez cleared Russell. It was a bit dodgy to start with. We had a couple of moments they ran off the track together, but got the move done eventually. He gave the position back when the move was done off the track and still got it done. Yeah, I can't really ask too much more. I don't expect it to be any closer either, because DRS was so unimpactful. It gave no real advantage. And the undercut as well barely existed around here. All of the moves that we saw when you're racing that close have to be done on pure driver ability and on track, which is what we want. That's exactly what you want to see. Moves being moved up by drivers who are willing to go that extra % in talent, get the move done, and then, you stick with it on the circuit. So I was very happy. Yeah, a little bit tough for him, but it should be tough for him, and he still managed to do it. So I actually think this was a solid performance from Sergio.
I think in terms of the result, that's what people will look at the most. Obviously, if you've got Max Verstappen winning the championship or leading the championship, it's not done yet, folks.
Can't he win it in Singapore?
Potentially.
I reckon if Sergio DNFs and he wins.
It's either Singapore or the one after.
Or Japan, yeah.
I believe in you, Perez. He won Singapore last year. Start of the comeback. Yeah, I think when it comes to Perez, 18 points was what he was looking for. 18 points is what he got. So that will be the biggest takeaway from this Grand Prix. I'm going to be harsh on Sergio Perez here. I was disappointed he couldn't find his way past George Russell sooner than he did. I can't remember what the other race was where he had something very similar, where Verstappen got by quite quickly and it took Perez a lot longer to do so. And I don't remember the race off the top of my head from this season. But it just seemed here as if he was falling for the same thing lap after lap, in that Russell was every single time going into turn 1 way later on the brakes than Sergio Perez was. And I feel like, okay, you can allow for that if you do the switchback and then make the move into turn 4, right? And that never materialized. I feel like eventually he got it, in that he did everything he could to get on the inside of the corner to the point where he wasn't far off being on the grass. But that was absolutely the right way to go. There were 2 options for him and anyone to make a move into turn 1. Either you do the switchback, or number 2, you just force your way to the inside. He went for that second option, but it took him a long time to get there. It just feels like he doesn't drive as much on instinct as some of the other drivers around him. And it takes him laps to work out how he's going to get past the driver. Whereas some of the other drivers, I feel like they just do it based on driving instinct. And as soon as he got past Russell, he caught up to the Ferraris very quickly. He had good pace. And he got the maximum result, so I'm not going to be too critical on him here. But I think there was more he could have done to dispose of Russell quicker than he could. There were a few 50-50 chances going into the braking zone where I feel like he should have structured his move slightly better.
Overtaking's never been Sergio's strong point, though, as on a weekend. He's so good at, the long runs, beating everyone else due to strategy because of his tyre ability. He's great in clean air. As you just commented on, his pace when in clean air was fantastic. And once he got past both Russell and the Ferraris, he was quite comfortably running off on his own. But yeah, I think that's that braking especially is a fair observation. We saw that quite a few times, didn't we? That Russell almost
way later
would kind of lift off the brake to see where Sergio was going, back on the brake, and then lift off of it again and just carry on into the corner a lot further and still get the car slowed down, go through the corner comfortably. That's a fair observation. I wouldn't be too harsh because he still managed to come out in second place. But yeah, fair point.
It's very, very harsh.
Very harsh.
Very harsh. Okay, with that, we'll take our first break. We'll be discussing Ferrari's duel towards the end of the Grand Prix right after this. Now, as you can imagine from this podcast, we were fully expecting the Ferrari battle to end in complete and utter tears. Somehow it didn't. They ended up third and fourth place, what represents definitely one of their better Grand Prix of the season so far. Sam, are you shocked that somehow they didn't crash into one another in those closing laps?
Shocked, yes. Slightly traumatised, yes. And maybe a little bit mucky downstairs because when Charles Leclerc had an all-four tyre lock-up on that last lap going into turn one,
I was done at that point.
Many poos had escaped me.
No risk. Charles Leclerc locks up all tyres.
All of the risk.
Hello, Risk.
All I heard was Risk over that.
Sorry, Sammy, I just said Risk.
Would you like to play a game of Risk? I'm taking over Italy. Charles Leclerc was desperate to get on that podium. And you know what? From an entertainment, a viewer point of view, who does, if I'm saying don't care what happens, I loved every second of it. I was on the edge of my seat. I was shouting at the screen. I had a great time. In terms of bringing home the race, when nothing, and I mean literally nothing, is at stake, one car will finish third, one car will finish fourth, and it doesn't matter, why are you risking it? It's all for one little moment of glory to stand on that big podium and wave to some Ferrari fans, which I get is an amazing feeling. And as a racing driver, you want to go for that, final move to get the points in. But realistically, across a season, is it changing anything? No. You are picking up the same amount of points for your team as it is. And poor Carlos needs a podium. He got it, finally. He got his first podium of the season, but he needed it. And they could have just comfortably stayed as it was. And I mean, it was quite funny to hear Carlos go, "We're risking too much, please. We need to just calm down now. Please. It's like, I'm losing this. Any more laps, I'm going to lose this." But Charles Leclerc was like, "I'm having none of that. I want that third place. Thank you very much, Sunshine." Didn't get it, but it was a great attempt. We saw a lot of great action from it. I loved it from a viewer's point of view. But yeah, absolutely ridiculous to really go after it right into the death of this race. 1/10 between them when they crossed the line.
Yeah, that's how close it was. What were your thoughts on the risks taken late on by those Ferrari duo, Harry?
A lot of banter.
That's a great way of describing it.
A lot of banter. Look, if they had taken each other off, we'd be sat here screaming at the team saying, "Why on earth did you not tell them not to hold station?" But I kind of admire that they let them race. Like, as you say, they are fight. I know it's a podium at Monza, which is a lot for a Ferrari driver, but it's it's not championship critical here. They are just fighting, and fair play for I know Leclerc gave it a good go for it not to be okay, but fair play that they trust their drivers enough to battle that hard, and they were battling hard lap after lap and not take each other off. So yeah, I know we'd probably be saying the opposite if they had taken each other off, but it was such an enjoyable battle. Two drivers going hammer and tong. At one point, Leclerc did get ahead, but then he went deep, right? And then Sainz going back. Yeah. Love that sort of stuff.
It was a brilliant battle.
We're too often in F1 these days, and I guess maybe that's DRS effect, but drivers cruise up to the back of another car, DRS, boom, they go past, and there's no battle anymore. It's just it might last for a corner, but this was a proper battle. Yeah. Like an actual battle. And I know Leclerc didn't get past, but sometimes that doesn't mean it has to make it a good battle. So fair play to both of them. Leclerc, I think if we'd given him any more laps, would have taken out the entirety of Italy. But luckily Tsunoda broke down, so we didn't have any more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Tsunoda saved his day. But yeah, fair play to them both, because it was a cracking battle to watch.
As a viewer, thank you so much for Ferrari. That was unbelievable to watch. As someone who appreciates strategy, what on earth are you doing? Call it off. They have got nothing to fight for. But fortunately, they didn't listen to the, I would say, strategic side of their brain. I don't think they have that.
No.
That's why they didn't do it, mate.
Yeah. So I'm actually really glad of Ferrari's inability to actually think, because what we got was a really entertaining battle. One of the most entertaining battles of the season so far, for sure. They realistically, they should have called this off, because Russell was comfortably enough behind, and we knew he had a penalty as well. And Red Bull were comfortably enough down the road. They weren't fighting for anything good or bad there. They just had to hold position and claim 27 points, which is pretty valuable when you've got Mercedes picking up 18. It's a good gain of nearly 10 points. And Aston Martin not doing much in that Grand Prix either. Lance Stroll's out of the points. Fernando Alonso's scraping was it 9th place finish in the end for him? And McLaren as well, obviously not scoring a great deal either. So a real opportunity for Ferrari to gain something on their rivals. Just bring it home. All 8 tyres collectively might not have had enough wear to make one proper tyre by the end of that Grand Prix. They were all shot. There was no point in battling. But I'm glad we got to see it. Certainly, Carlos Sainz's defences were on the edge, I'll say. Not just with Leclerc, but I think all the way throughout the Grand Prix. It was robust, I think, is the correct word.
I'm all for that.
Hey, I think
he went about it.
He started off like okay, but as the race went on, he just got more and more desperate.
Crept in, didn't it? I will not let you past. He's got Gandalf inside of his helmet, apparently.
I think he did at some point. So overall, I think they probably should have called this off, but I'm glad they didn't. Sam, what did you make of Carlos Sainz's defense? You like it?
Yeah, I did like it. It was on the line. It was pushing it. And there were a couple of moments on replays where you look back and go, there isn't a car's width there. And hey, they didn't penalise Verstappen at Zandvoort for not leaving a car's width against Gasly, so why bother penalising it here either? There were a few moments where drivers had to take to either running off curbs, backing out, running over the little escape road bit that we saw. And it wasn't just Sainz. We saw it with a number of drivers who weren't leaving space. We're going to get on to a couple of penalty incidents later on down the line. If you leave with the space, you have a good race. That is how the expression goes. And Carlos Sainz didn't leave a lot of the space, and he still had a very good race. This is the level that I liked. I thought at no point could I categorically say you're definitely wrong. And I think if it's at that grey area where it's a bit touch and go, you've touched the line for me. That is as far as I want it to go. Everyone was very sensible. No one really kind of doing something outrageously dangerous. And it made for a very, very entertaining Grand Prix. So for me, that's as far as you stretch it. And then you leave it there. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It made for arguably the best battles we've seen all season. And that's not just Sainz and Leclerc. That was Sainz and Perez. That was Perez and Leclerc. That was Verstappen and Sainz. That entire front four had a brilliant day of it going into turns 1 and 2. And I would not change it.
I think from my side, the majority of it was all good. There was one instance where I think they were side by side, Sainz and Perez going into turn 1 and turn 2. And Sainz does not leave him any room whatsoever. Policing turn 1 and turn 2 is really difficult because, as we saw with the Verstappen incident, you can get drivers be really cheeky and actually not be side by side going into the corner in the braking zone, but eventually catch up with the way that the corner works to the point where they are side by side coming out of turn 2. At that point, I don't think the driver making the move on the outside is entitled to that space, because they weren't side by side as they were braking into turn 1. But I think there was one instance where Perez and Sainz were side by side. Sainz doesn't leave any room. And I think that one was over the limit. I think outside of that, I think the rest of it was on the line, but on the line is good. I think there was just one instance where he went over it. What did you think, Harry?
Yeah, as I say, I think it started off. I was quite impressed by Sainz at the beginning with his defense against Verstappen, placing the car in all the right places. As I say, I think as the race went on, it got slightly more dodgy. I think most of the defense against Perez was as you say on the line, but okay. A few late moves, especially when you're doing such high speeds, that I hate. That's probably the worst thing I hate about some of the defending we have in F1 these days. Like that sort of late move, because if that goes wrong and the driver behind doesn't react, it'll be Alonso strolling.
Along
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be an airplane crash. Like they'll be in the air like
And
Alonso
there's a
was.
huge sausage curve on the exit of that turn one.
Exactly.
You hit that facing the wrong way, it's not going well.
Not good. So, yeah, those ones for me are where I'm not particularly happy. But that was only once, maybe twice.
Yeah, there was one.
Sainz.
There was one. I know the one that Beng's on about,
Yeah.
and that was a bit much.
But yeah, overall, I think it was robust, pretty good from Sainz. And when you're spending the afternoon literally looking in your mirrors, which he did.
I don't think he did anything else.
No, he
Permanently turned to the right and to the
him
left.
and him and
He's got
Albon.
neck issue
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, they got cricks in their necks. Because he was just defending all afternoon. So I think one or two transgressions will allow, but overall pretty good.
Let's have a look at driver of the day, shall we?
Oh no!
Oh, he's not ready.
Oh, come on, man.
He's not ready.
Hang on. No.
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day.
Shit, put on the wrong one.
You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
Who have you got, Harry?
This tricky one actually, because I think there's quite a few contenders, but I'm gonna go for Alex Albon, because I know he obviously didn't. We'll get onto that, but he didn't get a podium either. But I think the Williams was not looking after its tyres at all. I know they pitted him early, but that was a cause of not looking after his tyres. But I think his defence all afternoon, another driver who was just looking at his mirrors, was very good. I guess I expected more of Williams, but given where their apparent race pace was, I think he actually drove very well, because I think he easily could have maybe ended up outside of the points had it gone a different way. So Albon for me. Sainz again contender. Verstappen obvious reasons, but I'll go Albon.
Clinical move on Piastri. That was like he got that done straight away.
Delightful.
Yeah, that's fair, very fair, because I think Piastri probably thought, yes,
I've got it done.
I've
That's the
done
hard
him.
move done now. I can run away. And then it's oh no.
Oh, no.
There he goes.
Who have you got, Sam?
I'm going to go for Carlos Sainz. I do agree that one of those moves was a little bit squeaky bump time, but the car was not made to be on the front row. I don't think out on pure paceability that car was finishing first or second, and he made it, I think, as physically hard as it could have been to have got through there. I don't know any other driver that would have made that even more difficult. Maybe if Verstappen himself was in the Ferrari, but it was excruciatingly painful for both Red Bulls to get past. It took Verstappen 15, 16 laps, and then once Perez caught up, it took him another 10, 15 laps to get through. It was tough, and there was a lot of opportunity to get the moves done. So I think Sainz delivered excellently, and then he kept Leclerc behind, I think, again, very, very well. He really earned himself that first podium. It was hard fought. I'm glad he's on the list, and best performance of the season, I think, for Sainz.
Yeah, I mean, good. I know he didn't win. He obviously converted a pole to a third, but I think given where Ferrari's pace is, I think a good confidence boost for
Their first podium for a
Carlos.
while, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
Leclerc had won at Belgium before the summer break, but it's only 4 for the season now, so it's well earned from Carlos Sainz. Sainz was very good. He's definitely a contender. I'd put him in there. And, Max Verstappen, he won the race.
Oh,
and,
that guy.
Yeah. I mean, he was still as good as Ferrari were to challenge him and Perez finishing second. He was still unchallenged for about 2/3 of the Grand Prix, which shouldn't go unnoticed. However, I'm going to go with a bit of an outside bet here. I'm going to go with a driver who scored points in a car that I don't think was good enough to score points, and that was Valtteri Bottas.
Very good shout.
We were shocked that he just popped up.
Yeah, what are you doing up there, mate?
I mean, it sounds harsh. He only got it because of what happened to Piastri, but he was the man that was there to take it. He had being 11th in the first place, and that Alfa Romeo is not good.
Yeah, I don't think that that Alfa Romeo was better than I think Haas and Alpine were probably slower, but I don't think anyone else was. So to get a point in what could have been the 8th fastest car, I think that's worthy of a nomination.
Also, we haven't commented on this, but that car looks so bloody good. Why can't it be the livery every race?
dirty.
Their current livery with the stupid kick stuff on it
Get rid of
is
it.
vile.
Aye.
Where this car is like, do you remember some of the great backmarker liveries we had kind of in the mid-2000s and stuff like that? It almost looks that good. I want to watch the back of the grid just to see that car go around more. It is delightful. And I love a livery. Ferrari can learn something because their special livery, there ain't nothing special about it, lads. You just put yellow on the tip.
Well, you said that should just be their livery.
Yeah, that's their normal
It's nice.
livery.
It's just not a good
Where's
one-off.
the yellow Ferrari?
Give me the yellow.
Stupid.
I would say one of these years they'll do it, but I'm not convinced they will. Worst driver of the day.
Ooh.
I'm looking for a jingle here.
Oh,
Oh, for Christ's sake, man.
sorry.
Get in the bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin. Worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
I should have used that time to think of one rather than pretending to sing along.
Good.
Full spoiler, we're not doing a jingle for Big Brain Strat. I can't go for it a third time. It's not happening.
I can be on it. I'll be on it.
All right. Just play it early. Worst driver of the day, Harry. Who have you got?
Well, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but Lance Stroll wasn't great this weekend, was he? He missed the entirety of Friday, so I that's why I'm giving this appendix to it, and then obviously he only really had Saturday to get the car his car in shape, but and I know that this wasn't a great circuit for Aston Martin, but he was a long way behind Fernando this weekend.
I mean this. I don't even mean this as an insult or a burn or anything like that. Did we see him today?
No,
I don't think so.
like
I
at
don't
all.
actually remember seeing his car once.
I've just put him on the timing board. He's actually got there.
Yeah, him and Joe. I don't remember seeing Joe.
Joe, I
either.
did not see at all.
Yeah, I guess there's so much happening, which is a great thing. We don't have to
Yes.
look down at 18th or whatever. But yeah, so I feel like there's some context needed to it. But having said that, the gap to just his teammate alone, I think he should have been at least a bit higher up in that bottom half of the field, because I think the Aston was where Alonso finished it. But yeah, he was a long way off.
I am going to give Stroll the benefit of the doubt for the reasons that you gave. It wasn't a great weekend, but ultimately undone by no time on Friday in the car whatsoever, apart from 2 laps before his car broke down in FP2. And I feel like progress was difficult to come by for anyone out there today. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to give Logan Sargent the benefit of the doubt. I feel like, and we'll get on to Williams in a bit, should have been fighting for points. Even if he doesn't get there, I think he should be fighting for points. And he wasn't. So I'm going to give it to him. Sam?
Might have stolen my answer there.
Oh no,
Logan Sargent, I think, was
Logan Civilian.
Logan Civilian. Logan's fired, quite frankly. This was we said it at the start of the weekend. If Alex Albon's there fighting for a top 6, which he was, he may not have got it, but he was fighting for that pretty much the entire Grand Prix. And the fact that you're at best floating around 13th, 14th place, and you're 10, 15 seconds away from 10th, it's not good enough. I'm sorry. I know we need to give these rookies time, but he's had, what race is this now? 12? 13? 13. He's had enough time to have settled in that I expected him to be able to at least sit where the car should naturally be. And I think Alex Albon is still outperforming that Williams, but I think if he finished 11th and he was 3 or 4 seconds behind Bottas, I might have gone, okay, not perfect, but you were kind of in the conversation. He just wasn't, and it's not enough anymore. And we're going to get onto it properly, but I do wonder if conversations might start to be had.
Last weekend when we were talking about him making it to Q3, but then he crashed.
Yes.
And I remember saying, I'd rather he be quick and crash, because you can iron out
And
inconsistencies.
slow and consistent.
So he's done the opposite
It
of
was
that.
slow and bad.
He was just slow.
Yeah.
Do the opposite again.
Didn't he get a time penalty?
Oh, yeah, something with him and
yeah.
Lawson. Was it him and Lawson? Oh, him and Bottas. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, he
There
did
were so
something
many.
wrong. I'm going to say, we didn't see half the replays,
No. We'll see him on social media.
because I'll see them on Tuesday, probably.
Yeah.
Ready, Harry?
Born ready.
No, you weren't.
Arguable. Big brain strat.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
The synth, honestly. Pure killer's vibes. I love it.
Hot fuzz.
What have you got, Sam?
I mean, I always get confused between my moment of the race, a big brain
No,
strategy.
this is about the strategy.
This is about strategy.
Yeah, strategy.
I mean, don't really have one.
Shall I go?
Sure.
Oh, I'll leave Sam some time to think. My one is, and we spoke about this in the race, is with, I don't know how many laps to go, 11, Lando Norris is stuck behind Alex Albon, and then McLaren say, box, as trying to like fake him out. And even Norris does like a little fake to the pit lane, and then James Vowles is just sat on the pit wall going, you mugs.
Just chuckling.
You think I'm going to fall for that?
That's I wrote that book.
I admire the effort, but it was a lame effort because there's no way they were coming in with 11 laps to go because they never would have caught him back again. So yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah,
This is Zach Brown.
screaming
Got
out
him!
the pit lane. Losers! Only to still be behind him. I guess because that's a great call, and I should have thought about that one. I'm going to go for a bit more, I guess, serious in that manner, but. Alpine obviously not good today, and apparently Esteban Ocon retired, and I wasn't ever even mentioned, I think.
No one said anything about that.
I am going to talk about the fact they pitted Pierre Gasly on like lap 10,
That would have been my
and then
second
he stayed
choice.
last, and then he got to about 17th, and they pitted him again, and he didn't really ever get anywhere with it. It was just like, you were rubbish as a
They
team.
could have had a 2-lap head start, and I don't know if they'd have won that.
Genuinely, I know we don't say this word a lot on the podcast, it's not a swear, but they were crap.
They were quite crap
They were
today.
crap.
It's been a tough first weekend for me in the interim.
You're gonna be out,
Alpine
mate.
role. It wasn't a good one. Unfortunately, we did have an issue with the car where
It was bad.
the pit lane limiter was permanently active all weekend long. The car never went faster than 50 miles an hour. It was disappointing.
Breaking
but
news, I'm taking over for Singapore.
That was a bit like Hamilton when he hadn't pitted yet. He was like a moving roadblock. It
Oh
was
my God.
terrifying.
Are you ever going to come in?
Get him out of the way. Sorry, Ben.
My one is outside. I do want to give a mention. I don't know if there was some sort of contact that forced him in, but Kevin Magnussen decided to go for the hard tyre to begin with and then be one of the first drivers to come into the pits. Questionable. Outside of that, though, something that's already been mentioned, the whole Charles Leclerc strategy of don't risk anything and then nearly killing Carlos Sainz, that was
Risk.
interesting.
Engage, risk.
You speak of Kevin Magnussen, by the way. We were
The whole race.
monitoring this. The classic Hulkenberg up in the top 10
Every
falling
time.
his way down, and by the end they're 17th and 18th.
We were literally there going, you can imagine him shouting over the... Magnussen, I'm coming!
Kevin, I'm on
Catch
my
up,
way.
mate. More like, you fall back to me, mate. I'll see you in about 20 laps time when we're last
Unbelievable.
together. They suck. How have you made such a bad race car?
I reckon if we race somewhere where it's like -10, Haas would be unstoppable.
Yeah, that'd
no
be it.
tyre deg at all.
Las Vegas, that could be Las Vegas. It's going to be real chilly.
You know, it won't. It won't.
As in, it won't be chilly?
They'll just turn up with, like, dice instead of wheels.
Hulkenberg on pole at Las Vegas.
Last by lap 10.
Good. Right, we'll take another short break. We'll be discussing Mercedes on the other side. So, Mercedes, George Russell started in 4th place, eventually finished in 5th place. Lewis Hamilton had a bit of work to do after dropping a position on the opening lap, but eventually came up from 9th to finish in 6th place. So 3rd best team on the day. We'll get into the penalties in just a moment. Sam, do you think that in terms of a result, this was about all they could get?
I genuinely think this is the most that they could pick out of Monza. They were so freaking slow in a straight line. What has happened? The days of Mercedes being the most dominant engine have come and gone. I don't know if it's, drag city in that team or whatever, which is ironic because a drag race, you want to go fast in a straight line, and they don't know how to do that.
Drag City.
Drag city. Swear word.
They're Alpine set up, isn't it?
They're clearly, yeah, they've just painted an Alpine black. George Russell actually relatively impressive with his overall pace. He did a great job in qualifying to get the car where it was. I actually think, I know it was only a 10th and a half between himself and Hamilton, but I think that 10th and a half really made a difference because I don't know if they both got past the McLarens and the Williams, if they were both starting from kind of 9th and 10th section, which is obviously where Hamilton began the Grand Prix. So I think Russell was really good. He defended pretty well against Sergio. And then Hamilton, of course, we're not talking about the penalties and incidents yet, but overall, I actually think he did a really good job despite whinging about hating tyres much. God, he just hates rubber.
Right, didn't it, really?
He just despises circular bits of rubber. And yet at the same time, he literally got, I think, the only position that's the maximum he could get out of this. And I think they did a good job at getting the most out of it, because I don't think it was going to get any better for them.
Yeah, but he was unhappy with his style.
We're screwed, man!
Finishes 2 positions higher than where he was at that point, yeah. What did you make of their efforts, Harry? Do you think 5th and 6th was obviously not a great result, but maybe the best they could get here?
Do you remember Martin Brundle, again, sorry if people don't have Sky commentary, Martin Brundle yesterday saying Mercedes don't look very good this weekend, but they'll probably survive, was what he used, but they'll probably scrape a result out of it. They had, the pair of them, scrappy as hell races, and yet they still finish P5 and P6. Like,
they found the results barrel and they really scraped it.
Couple of burglars. I know George Russell gets that reputation, but both of them, I'm not saying they don't deserve it, because they did. I think their pace was enough to be in those positions, but just how? Yeah. How have you done that?
They've turned that out well, and that's what Mercedes have done since the car has been dominant. They have just been able to pull out, and I think a lot of the time it's their driver lineup. I think if you put other two, other than maybe Verstappen and Alonso, any other 2 drivers in that car, they don't get those results.
I think, yeah, despite Hamilton having a whinge, George Russell with his classic radio, the pair of them actually drove pretty well, barring the
Hamilton did try and murder
relative incidences. I was going to say as well about being so slow in a straight line. Before that incident, which we'll go on to, they would like having a drag race through the Curva Grande. That's it. Hamilton, Piastri, and Hamilton had the better exit, but Piastri was going back in front of him. Do you remember the time this year when McLaren was so slow in a straight line, and yet it was going quicker than the Mercedes today?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
The Mercedes boys, as we caption them, all the Mercedes engine runners.
5th down.
How are they all so weirdly draggy yet not draggy?
So odd.
Like, it's so strange the way their engines are working.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's just a scrappy yet savvy afternoon from Mercedes to pick up the maximum I think they could have done. Barring retirements, I don't think they were getting any higher than that.
I'm still praying for a Verstappen retirement. I did say it was going to happen during the race.
It might happen. DSQ.
Please, for fun lords.
Not sure about that. Yeah, I think if you had gone to George Russell at the beginning of this race and say, right, you've outqualified Lewis Hamilton by 4 positions. Lewis Hamilton is going to hate his tyre strategy. He's going to drop a position on the opening lap, and he's going to nearly kill Oscar Piastri. Oh, by the way, you beat him by 2 points. He'd be like, oh, come on. Really? 2 points? But yeah, I think 5th and 6th was the maximum they could get out of this. They were just about clear of McLaren, Williams, Aston Martin, but they were still a long way behind anyone, the Ferraris and the Red Bulls in front of them. So I think 5th and 6th is ultimately what they should have got. I think in all likelihood, Russell cost himself a point, because if he didn't have that 5-second time penalty, I think he would have had the gap back to Albon to actually come in and get the fastest lap with a couple laps to go. I think if it was touch and go if he was going to make it with the 5-second time penalty. So if he doesn't have that, I think they make that call and they go ahead and do it. So he might have cost himself 1 point, but ultimately, yeah, 5th and 6th was about all they could get. I think Lewis Hamilton, as much as he complained about it, worked the strategy quite well. Those medium tyres were far better on that second stint, and he did have to go through the pain of those hard tyres where he was the moving roadblock, as you've already identified. But it was kind of worth it in the end for where he ended up finishing. Let's have a look at the 2 incidents that led to a combined 10 seconds worth of penalties that, in real terms, resulted in nothing. George Russell was in the first instance. He had Esteban Ocon did feature once today, which was the penalty of another driver. Sam, do you think it was fair enough to penalise there?
Well, speaking of Ocon, to be fair, I know he was all the way at the back while he was around, but he made a couple of tasty moves going into turn 1.
All for nothing.
All for nothing. And
Absolutely
they didn't finish
nothing.
the race. The incident, Russell Ocon incident, it was silly. It really felt like it was, unnecessary because Ocon was on very old tyres. Russell just comes out. He probably could have given it half a lap and would have breezed past him quite comfortably. Now, obviously, with hindsight, it would have made sense for Russell to wait. But he was already so far ahead of Ocon by the time that they decided that he had to give the position back, that he actually, as they came over the radio and said, he lost so much more time by giving up the time, letting him come back through, than maybe trying to overtake him again or hoping he pits, that you've kind of mitigated the time difference anyway. So take it on the chin, get on with it. And that's exactly what he did. So for Russell, as much as this was a bit silly, it cost him nothing. He delivered what he needed to do and he got on with it. So pretty inconsequential. That's a good word.
So it is a word.
Yeah, well done me. Are we talking about Hamilton yet or not?
Hamilton.
Hamilton?
We'll cover off Russell first.
Okay.
We'll circle back.
I don't
to
think
Lewis Hamilton.
this is disastrous for Russell. I think actually, as penalties go, oh well.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, it meant absolutely nothing apart from maybe that 1 point for fastest lap. But ultimately, yeah, it's not going to be one that doesn't win him a championship at the end of
Don't
the year.
make a habit out of doing this.
No.
Because it will bite you on the bum.
At some point, yeah. The incident itself, yeah, it was just a bit silly. They weren't racing one another. I know Ted Kravitz was quite heated about this on Sky Sports commentary. Yeah, Ocon obviously wasn't in his race whatsoever. By the time he'd got a few seconds down the road, of course, it wasn't worth it at that point. They needed to either make the switch straight away or take the 5 seconds. I think it was enough of a slam dunk that they probably should have just switched it straight off like they did, like many other drivers did throughout the day. I think that probably just would have made the most sense to get it done straight away. It's not like he would have then been stuck behind Ocon for 20 laps. We know how slow that Alpine was in a straight line. He was going to get past probably on the start-finish straight at the latest of the following lap. So, yeah, ultimately didn't matter, but I think he probably should have just let him pass straight away there. Harry?
Yeah, I think it's on Russell rather than the team, because I think they said, didn't they? They didn't really know what happened, and I think that's on Russell, as you say, just to give it back. But there's a counter argument, which is they were saying outlap's critical, and obviously he's trying to undercut Perez and the Ferraris maybe, and giving that place back would have meant there's no chance anyway. It was optimistic anyway, but I guess he was thinking, well, there's no chance if I have to give this back. So maybe that's why he didn't. Bit silly. I guess the only thing I was going to say, because he was coming out the pits, I know Ocon was there, so he is, they're sharing the same bit of racetrack, but it's almost like, I don't think Russell was trying to outbrake him. I think Russell outbraked himself.
Yeah.
If Ocon hadn't been there at the same time, and Russell just bounced across the chicane, would they have even looked at that?
No, of course not.
No.
Yeah, but and that's my point. I think that's almost unlucky in that sense, but like I say, I still think Russell should have just given it back straight away. But yeah, it's just
It's clumsy, wasn't it?
clumsy timing. Yeah. So
no harm, no foul though. Like, it didn't really hurt Ocon properly.
End of the day, didn't matter. So yeah, it's all right. Don't do it again though.
Yeah, don't make a habit of it. It cost no one anything apart from himself, and then even then it didn't cost him anything. So yeah, don't do it again. Naughty boy.
Hamilton's incident, also a 5-second time penalty, also didn't cost him anything in terms of race result at the end of the Grand Prix. Sam, this one seemed to be very similar to Hamilton and Leclerc's incident from a few years back at that same corner, when it was actually a fight for the win rather than a fight over whatever position Piastri and Hamilton were fighting over here. Turn 4, what do you think? 5 seconds, was that fair? Should it have been more, less?
Ben, just remind me what the decision was from that incident a couple of years ago.
Nada.
It's a racing incident.
Didn't they get a black and white flag?
Yep, that's all he got.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think. And
essentially
nothing.
nothing. The difference is, of course, proper contact was made here. I think that is actually the difference. I think Hamilton was squeezed off and had to take the run through in that previous incident with Leclerc, but there was no contact. There is contact here. Piastri has to obviously stop. This was very silly from Lewis Hamilton. I genuinely think this is a 100% slam dunk, easy penalty. The move was pretty much done. You're on much newer tyres, hit the brakes slightly later, which you're Lewis Hamilton. You're capable of braking late and getting a move done into a braking zone, sunshine. It's not like you're brand new at this. Piastri was only going to ever put up so much of a fight, and you were alongside. You didn't need to keep coming over. You've got to leave that space. And if you leave the space, you have a happy race. Now, the consequence of this happening is he had to really work that car at the end of the race after he got the moves done on not just Piastri with the incident, but then with Norris and then with Albon. And it's not like, cool, I can relax, I can chill out now. He has got to pound round that track. He has got to get the gap done. And he did. It was 7 seconds to get back to Albon at the end. But you're causing yourself just unnecessary threat, unnecessary worry going around the track at the end. And the strategy turned out, despite his complaints, to be a really good one from Mercedes. He got, as we said, the maximum. Maybe Russell was the only other person who could have beaten had he been closer throughout the Grand Prix, but unlikely. So this just felt like it was a bit brash, a bit rushed, like he was frustrated at the tyres or the strategy at maybe being further back. And it's a real shame for Piastri, who, as much as wasn't running the best race of all time, he was right next to Norris the entire Grand Prix. At any point, maybe he could have got the move done on his teammate and on Albon as well. So yeah, it's a shame. It's definitely a penalty. He got not lucky, but he had to turn out a performance to mean that it meant absolutely nothing to his Grand Prix. And I think that he could have got that move done without making any contact or any problem. We saw many other drivers do it. Why couldn't he?
Harry, a fair penalty?
Yeah, fair cop. It was quite clumsy. If George Russell's was clumsy, this is hella clumsy,
Hella.
I'd say. Yeah, I don't really know what he was doing there. He had all the space. So yeah, a fair pen, absolutely. My only question, and this is merely a question, not an opinion, is it fair that it's the same penalty that Russell got?
I think Hamilton was lucky with 5 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know we say you shouldn't base it off the result, but given Russell
I don't think it's the same thing though, is it?
bounced across the chicane, yes, he overtook Ocon, which is illegal, 5 second pen, fair. Hamilton cuts across and knocks Piastri out of the
contact is
the
the
running.
difference. The contact is the difference.
5 seconds.
My instinct was 10 seconds on that. I didn't think it'd be 5.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think unfortunately, with penalties, they almost have like a window, and I think Russell's is right at the very bottom of the window, whereas I think Hamilton's might be very much at the top of the window, bordering on, as you said, Ben, that either 5 or 10, and he got lucky with a call for 5.
Yeah, I think that probably gives my opinion on what it should have been. I
think if it was 10, I think the difference between the Leclerc one a few years ago would have been an absolute outrage, though.
Oh, I mean, yeah. We knew at the time that wasn't fair.
That should have been a 5.
If we're looking at this incident independently, 10 seconds for me. Let's move on. Quick chat about Williams before we go to another break. Obviously, Alex Albon in the points, Logan Sargent not in the points. This is probably a discussion that we'll get on to in a non-race review environment. But Sam, any thoughts on Logan Sargent not being able to get into the points at a venue where Alex Albon managed to get into the points as he did last year? Of course, Nick De Vries, as we know, subbed in for Latifi last year and got points here. Sargent not able to get inside the top 10.
Now, I know we make a lot of comparisons between teammates, and that seems completely fair. And Alex Albon is arguably, if you take out the likes of Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, is arguably the driver of the season so far. He is outdriving that Williams. So it is tough when your teammate is, performing at that level. But what I want to compare is, as you just brought up there, Sargent in today's Williams and De Vries in last year's Williams. And I think everyone would agree that this year's Williams is significantly stronger than last year's Williams, right? It was we're going to take a Hail Mary and hope we can pick up some points at Monza, because that's the only place that our car actually suits. Whereas here, we've seen Albon stick it in the points in a multitude of races, Zandvoort being one of them that just came and went, which doesn't suit their characteristics at all. So if the car is that much more comfortable, it's beating both McLarens on raw pace, it beat both Aston Martins on raw pace, and then, it was challenging with the Mercedes on raw pace. It is shocking, appalling that Logan Sargent isn't even challenging for a singular point here, and I think it really has just highlighted the fact that if we didn't think De Vries was good enough after he had this half a season when he did what he did last year at Monza, How is Logan Sargent any better? He doesn't crash as much, but he still ain't getting close to the points. And at the end of the day, whether you crash or you're finishing 18th or 15th or whatever it might be, you're still scoring nada. You're still taking home nothing for the team. It's not enough. And I think this race today has sealed my opinion. Ben, I know you put this on the schedule, that I think a second season might have come and gone for him. I don't think he's got what it takes to maintain a proper Formula One career for the long term.
What did you make of Albon and Sargent's race today, Harry?
Well, I mean, Albon, I've already pointed out, was my driver of the day. Yeah, Sargent, as I've already said, I think Zandvoort was encouraging in that he had the speed and was there or thereabouts with Albon. Obviously, he crashed in qualifying. The race crash wasn't his fault. I think that was established it was a BBW failure. But today, yeah, I mean, the weekend just not looked at the same pace as Albon at a weekend where we thought the Williams, and I think the Williams was stronger here than it was even in Zandvoort, despite the, I guess, qualifying difference in terms of where Albon, but where both of them qualified. I think it did have a stronger car this weekend. So, yeah, not great for Sargent's future. I don't think this weekend. You know, I'd still give him to the end of the season, but you're right. I wouldn't be confident that a second year is on the table at the moment. Just, I think James Vowles is a sensible man. I think he would be eyeing up or weighing up his options in case the Sargent's form doesn't improve anytime soon. But yeah, today was not good.
Just for clarity, I agree with you that he should get to the end of the season still. I think it's come and gone.
Sam's off to fire another driver.
Off I go. That's all I'm employed.
You are just Eddie Jordan.
Well known. I think at this point. I think Mick Schumacher might be on the phone.
I think Toto will be on the phone with Mick Schumacher.
Hello, James. Papa Toto. It's me, Papa Toto.
Most likely, yeah. I agree. Should be given to the end of the season. It's not been a good run of races for Sargent, particularly where Alex Albon is now consistently making it to Q3. It's not even like it happens once every 4 or 5 races. It's more often than not he is in Q3 now, and he's converting more of those into points. And Sargent was never there. If you look at the grid today, nearly all sets of teammates were very close to one another. In that Red Bulls finished 1 and 2, Ferraris 3 and 4, Mercs 5 and 6. The McLaren duo were side by side nearly all race. Both the Alpine and the Haas drivers were side by side, not in a good way, but they were very close to one another, pretty much like the entire Grand Prix. Of AlphaTauri, we never really got to saw. The only, I think, 2 other teams where there was a considerable gap between teammates were Alfa Romeo, that we've already talked about with Bottas getting in the points, and Aston Martin, where we've already identified that there was a little bit of mitigating circumstances this weekend. So it's not a good reflection on Logan Sargent that so many other teammates were close to one another, and he obviously wasn't. We'll see how it goes. The one thing that might play in his favour is that I don't think there is an obvious candidate. I know, Mick Schumacher might be in contention for it, but it's not as if Mick Schumacher was massively hard done by, but not by not getting a 3rd season in Formula One. He didn't massively impress whilst he was here. So I think maybe Logan Sargent can count himself lucky that Theo Pourchaire or Ollie Behrman or someone like that isn't a part of the Williams driver academy. That might help him out. I don't know, but it's not looking good at the moment.
Just for a little, just did some research on the fly.
For a fly guy.
Out of 14 Grand Prix, this was the 14th race of the season. I've got to say, no, I haven't. Alex Albon has been in the top 10, qualifying in the top 10 6 times and 11th once as well, whereas Logan Sargent has only qualified above 15th place twice all season.
And we know, obviously, it's the only driver pairing on the grid where Logan Sargent hasn't out-qualified his teammate so far this year. Might well be more chat on this in the following weeks. We'll take a short break, though, and we'll be back with Moment of the Race right after this. Before we get into some Discord submissions for Moment of the Race, we, of course, have our own submissions here. Harry, kick us off. What was one thing that you can pick out from this Grand Prix? There was a lot to choose from.
I mean, the Sainz, Leclerc, Piastri, Perez battle was spicy, and I enjoyed that a lot. But I'm going to have to go for George Russell being told to manage his rear tyre, and he said, "Can't you see I've got a car up my arse?"
I don't know if you've noticed, mate.
Don't even notice.
There's a car up my arse.
Most passag.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
George, back honestly, that we will have to have a special award for him at the LBs this year.
He's getting a radio of the year, isn't he?
He will.
But it might have to be like
A George
the
Russell
best
radio
George
award.
Russell
Yeah.
radio.
And like a separate one for everyone else.
We got to pick a winner. How on earth do you pick a winner?
I've no idea.
Maybe the people vote.
Yeah.
Also, this is so random, but I've never heard someone abbreviate passive aggressive as PASAG.
Have you not?
No, and it sounds like a dish you get from the Indian. I'll have a chicken PASAG with an naan bread and rice, please. That's what it sounds like to me.
Like a sag paneer and a pasag.
I'll have a PASAG.
I'm so shocked you've never heard of passag.
I've never heard of PASAG before. I'm going to incorporate that. I'm going to use that this week.
Lovely.
Good stuff. Looking forward to that. What was your moment of the race, Sam?
Both the ones that Harry raised are fantastic points. For me, it's going to be in the delayed or abandoned race start. Fernando Alonso was asleep in the cockpit. Sitting there for about 2 minutes with his eyes closed, and he looked like he literally woken up when they went, "You got to go, Fernando."
He's just a tired old man.
Just a little old man. Don't make me do
My
it.
car's not very good.
I'm so tired. Come on, just let me go to Singapore. I'm going to be good again. I know it's silly. It's not even part of the race, really, but love
Counts,
it.
mate. We've done a lap.
That's so true. It was on lap 2, technically. So that for me.
Sleepy Alonso.
Sleepy
is my new
Alonso.
favourite character.
Sleepy Alonso.
I'm so tired.
Hey, Lewis Hamilton has a 5-second time penalty. You can get him. Right.
It did feel like he suddenly
did.
sniffed it, though. He went, "Hello."
He's like,
2 points.
I'll push up. That's fine.
I'll take an 8th.
I'm also going back to the beginning of the race for my moment of the race, which was all of the engineers, everyone just waiting around, seeing if they're allowed to go through the
What
gate
was
or
that
not.
about?
And then one brave soldier just like, "I'm going for it.
I'm popping the fence.
No confirmation that they're allowed to, but it was just like, yeah, I'll go for it. I'm here for. I don't even remember what team it was. I'm here for you, mate.
Alfa Romeo.
One was an
Alfa.
Alfa Romeo, one was a Red Bull, yeah.
Yeah, I just love that. The first through the gates, the proper Game of Thrones moment, yeah, I don't know, charging on the city.
Is it really going to change the whole race if you're the only one that doesn't make it over the fence first? Nothing happened.
I know they were having issues with the start lights, but that whole aborted start thing was
communicate.
It's just classic FIA, isn't it?
my lord.
Just bad.
I need to protect my blood pressure, so I'm not going to get into it any more than that. But come on, right? Moment of the race. That's from us three. What about from our Discord submitters, though? If you'd like to get involved with these, you can do. Just join the Discord. Link is in the description. There is a submissions channel, and we do these for previews of Grand Prix, where we ask for what do we ask for on previews?
Under pressure, mate.
Under pressure, that's what it's called. And race reviews, of course, where we ask for moment of the race.
Okie dokie. Here we go then, folks. Another batch of people.
Wonderful batch.
Batch.
SoCal Jen.
Hi, this is Jen from SoCal. I'm just finishing this race, watching it, and oh my God. I guess my moment of the race is a spicy battle between Ferrari, but I'm just shocked they didn't take each other out, because that would have been really Ferrari. Okay, join the Patreon.
She's so
join
right.
the Discord,
So
and
real.
I'll see you in Austin.
SoCal Jen,
Bye.
you're so real for that.
We will see her in Austin. She is coming.
I'm going to make a note of it. See
We
you
going
again
to
in
Austin?
Austin. I think we might be doing a live show if we've mentioned it.
We should talk about that more.
But is it re-signed?
Shut up.
Sorry.
Terrible banter. Next up, Joys That Kill.
First stint battling, even though it ended with George Russell's rear end against Perez.
Cheeky.
George, why do you keep disappointing me?
Oh.
Bit of a Skylar impression there from Joyce at Kill.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, 14 kilobytes incoming. 14! How can it be that little? Anyway, 14 kilobytes. It's Skylar.
Ferrari lockup.
And they're not wrong either.
Good. A big ham.
A really big ham.
A huge ham.
Hey boys, it's a big ham. My moment of the race was when the FIA renamed Turn 1 the Sergio Perez Memorial Runoff Road. He's created an entirely new racing line and seems to think that's okay. Bye.
Yeah, he really didn't want to do Turn 1. A lot of that race.
Not a fan.
Next up, Tenerife beef on our holidays.
Tenor beef.
Hello, coming at you from Tenerife, poolside. Yeah, I'm on my Ollie Bobs with Boyfriend Beef. The surprise for Boyfriend Beef the other week, by the way, which I didn't tell you, is I took him to the New Forest. It was very nice. Moment of the day was me losing my marbles at the pool where Charles almost ended him and Carlos, which was really nice. Anyone wants to see my full rant, go to the Discord. Okay, bye.
I thought she actually was talking about bringing marbles to the pool.
Marvin.
That's a fun activity on holiday.
Rye Guy.
Hey guys, it's Rye Guy. Tattoo update. Still no update. Still looking for an artist and going through all that.
Get on with it, Rye Guy.
I will keep everybody posted in the next race as we keep going, but hopefully by the end of the season I'll have something. And I promise I'm still getting it. I'm not checking out of it now. My moment of the race is Oscar Piastri getting a taste of what it's like to drive anywhere in the southeastern United States where someone just sideswipes you out of nowhere. You get in an accident, so it's great. Anyways, love you guys too. Keep on breaking late. Join the Patreon. Bye.
All right, Guy.
Love you, right go.
This might be a new person. The One Car Guy?
I think so.
Let's go for it.
What up, late breaking? This is the One Car Guy. My moment of the race today was when Charles was just trying his best to try to get past Carlos, but he couldn't, and he almost crashed. I thought it was a crash, but that was the moment of the race. Hope everyone has a good day, and join the Discord right now. Right
here, right now.
Fat Boy Slim there.
Fat Boy One Car.
Fat Boy Car.
I feel like the way that he was describing those events was very accurate.
Yeah, it's more and more
he
intense.
was almost crashing. I thought he had crashing. Okay. Card Jam.
Car Jam here from bright, sunny, beautiful Florida. Moment of the race was definitely that Ferrari battle. That was intense. But I'm sick and tired of these people getting away with causing crashes, out with the 5 seconds, in with the 5 points. Let's make it hurt, baby. Piastri, great race. Wasn't your fault.
That's an interesting topic for another day.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, God.
It's our favourite Hazard.
Hazard.
All right, boys, seeing all these drivers that have been so mollycoddled and pampered by DRS for so many years actually have to try and make proper overtakes was my moment, plural, of the race. Put your brakes on late, stay on the track and use the corner. Oh, I can't just use my button to do it on a straight no more. Proper racing. Love it. Need more of it. Cheers, boys.
Is Hazard actually James Hunt? Back in my day,
old-fashioned.
We had to do it in the corner.
I
don't disagree.
Yeah. Madalena.
Hi guys, this is Madalena. It's my 4th submission, I believe.
Yes, Madalena.
And, Max Verstappen bickering over the radio was for me, as I think it was for many people, the highlight of this race. Bye.
Bye.
Speaking of, by the way, this is not from the race, but on Friday, I don't know if you saw it, in practice, they were doing their first sort of like fast runs on the soft tyre. Max did his first run. Was like, I want to do another one. I didn't get a good read. And GP comes back and is like, it's not qualifying, mate. We're fine. And Max was like, no, I'm doing one. So Max does another fast lap. And then GP comes back and goes, did you learn anything? And Max went, no, not really. And GP is just like, well done.
Well done. You should have listened to me again.
So good.
Can Sam put his headphones back in? This is the real issue.
I've struggled here.
Anyway, I'll go for the next one. Upstalg 10-2.
Hey, Mercedes. If you aren't being penalized, you aren't racing hard enough. Good job. Join the Patreon, join the Discord, keep breaking late.
Love you, White.
I like that his submission is Mercedes Bad Boys.
Alexander Burke is back again.
Mercedes Bad Boys, always getting penalties.
You know it's 75 minutes into a podcast when Alexandra Burke makes an appearance.
Okay, we're almost done. All good always.
Hayley late breaking. Well, first of all, thank you, Sam, for your comment on my last submission. That was really sweet. I'm going to be bringing on my Sunshine A game for every single one of my submissions from now on, just for you guys. Moment of the race. I mean, that scrap with the 2 Ferrari boys, they did not disappoint. I mean, when I said they were under pressure this weekend, I didn't expect them to bring on that spiciness. So exciting. Love you guys. Love the podcast. Bye.
Firstly, it's clear that you didn't listen to the podcast that you missed.
Do you listen to podcasts that you're on?
No.
Well, there you go.
If I want it, I've done it, mate.
I know when I listen to the first few minutes just to see what insult you've thrown at me.
No, it's a load of rubbish. Never mind. Every time.
I was having a bad day. She was just wonderfully good.
Ah, that's lovely. And we have Skitty. New one.
Hello, I thought I'd make my first submission. I am absolutely thrilled for Carlos, but I feel so bad for Yuki. Poor guy didn't even finish his formation lap. I'd really like to see him in points again.
That's a fair point. We haven't spoken about Yuki once.
Yeah, Paul he wasn't there.
2 out of 3 DNSs in the last 3 years at Monza.
It's not gone well. Poor guy had to sit in a recovery truck.
Yeah. He went across the line backwards.
He did.
Also, welcome, Skitty.
Welcome, Skitty.
Thanks for your sub.
I'm so going to end up saying that wrong if you continue to
Please
do
do not
submissions.
say it wrong.
Anyway, thank you all.
Indeed. Thank you all. That's enough. That is absolutely enough of us three.
Ben, I know we'll take 30 seconds, but we've not reviewed something.
Yeah, mate. There's a bit we haven't talked about yet.
What haven't we reviewed?
Our pop predictions.
Do we have to?
No, not really. We don't have to. I'm just saying.
Wrong.
All wrong.
Good idea. It's probably because I'll start with my bold prediction. I was completely settled with the fact that I was nowhere near mine yesterday rather than today. I said that Max Verstappen was going to get pole position by at least half a second. The problem is Max Verstappen needed to get pole position for that to even have a chance of being right. He didn't get pole. So naturally, he didn't get pole by half a second. Yeah, so I was wrong. Sam's was right for about 10 laps.
Oh, it's longer than that, mate. I was really clinging on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because Albon was also in sick for so long. I'm like, Verstappen just needs to DNF. You know, when they say over the radio at the end, he had an issue. I'm like, I was so close. And I'm never going to get it right again. I've had one all season on the first race of the season. I'm never going to be right.
Just to confirm what Sam's was two-parter. Max Verstappen to win the race, which of course he
not
wasn't
win the
winning
race.
for,
not winning the race,
and which he wasn't doing for the first third of the Grand Prix at least. And Alex Albon would be in the top 6, which was very close, but not quite. Harry, naturally, if a Williams wasn't in the top 6, it probably wasn't in the top 3.
You were close.
Yeah.
No.
Williams, you let me down there. You straight line speed merchants.
Yeah.
You're not anymore, apparently. So,
corner merchants.
Corner merchants.
God, bloody downforce kings.
Yeah, I said Albon was going to... No, I said Williams was going to be on a podium, so Albon was...
Yeah, but we all know it was only Albon that was in contention.
Well, Albon was not that close, and Sargent was nowhere near.
Sargent was still closer to the Zandvoort podium at finishing this race.
Yeah.
We started bold predictions pretty well this year.
I think it's been at least 6 races since one of us got one right.
It's gone downhill.
Been a bad run.
I might go
Real
really
bad run.
unbold for Singapore.
Denied.
At least 10 cars will finish. Only 11.
10 cars.
Yikes. Right, that is definitely it for now. Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here, we'll of course be back on Wednesday.
We will be back on Wednesday for our midweek chats because there's not going to be a race next weekend, unfortunately. But thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the Italian Grand Prix. You can follow us on social media at Late Breaking F1 at every single account. We're also the same on the YubTubs, Late Breaking F1. There's a link in the description for our sponsor, NordVPN. There's also the Discord that you can get involved with, and we've got Patreon where you get 2 extra episodes a month and Beer with Breaking. Thank you so much for listening. We love you dearly. Cheers for sticking with us. We'll be here for the rest of the season. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.
I'm trying to make them really compact at the moment.
You're doing very well.
Speed them up.